Hi, friends, this is Santosh, and welcome to my podcast. This is all about self help information in the form of conversations, stories, and book bites. And in this month of March 2021, we are celebrating the Women's Month on the eve of Women's Day. And today, on that note, I have a guest with me, and she has been an HR professional for more than 10 years in Middle East and South Africa. She is currently the Global HR Director and Diversity and Inclusion Head at Schindler Electric. She is also the author of the book Inclusion Starts With You. And she is Sarah Tabet. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good morning, Santosh. How are you? I'm great. Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
great.
for hosting me.
Thank you. Thank you for being on my podcast. So, Sarah, and for the benefit of the listeners, this podcast is going to be about inclusion and diversity. So, to begin with, Sarah, what is the meaning of diversity? What is the meaning of inclusion? And also, are these two terms the same or different?
So thank you, Santosh, for bringing this up as a start because, as you rightly said, there are two terms that we always hear coming together: diversity and inclusion. While some people think that those mean the same, they actually don't mean the same. But they are more complementary. So when we talk about diversity, and if we go to the definition by dictionary, it really says that it's a conglomeration of things. You know, it could be people, different people. It could be diverse. Diverse mindset, culture, nationality. So it really can mean a lot of things. But then all of these characteristics, if you put them in one place and you don't make sure that they can work well together, actually things don't work out. So I always try to kind of picture the words diversity and inclusion like a salad. You know, it's when you put different vegetables together, if you don't mix them with the right dressing, the salad won't work, it won't taste good. So
Hmm.
diversity is when you mix different things together, but then only when you make sure that there is inclusion in the way that they interact, in the way that they can be, or they can reflect their own identity. This is where things work out, be it in the workplace or society or anywhere else.
Okay, so thank you, Sarah, for putting out that very interesting point that diversity and inclusion are like a salad. Okay, now let me ask you this one question. That is, I'm from India. So in India, we are fond of having roti or rice or these things or very so many delicacies, the land of spices and everything. So why do you think this salad, diversity and inclusion, is important for an organization where we have so many other things like productivity, like getting more results? Do you think that diversity and inclusion helps with these things?
Yeah. So absolutely, I like the methodology you used, or the metaphor about spices, because I do agree that also if we relate, to the way that Indian cuisine is made, it only becomes good when you put all these spices together. Now, does it mean that if you does it mean like if you have organizations that have been traditionally working by having people from the same background, or what we call them, you know think alike, people think alike, that they agree on everything, they come from the different school, does it mean that this won't work, like the organizations won't work? Absolutely not. It has been working for a while, but knowing that we're moving more and more into difficult economic situations, uh, organizations have to be more creative to win. This is the only way to affect the bottom line and make productivity. Because today we need to be creative, and only way to get that creativity is to bring different perspective on the table. If people have the same background, the probability of them coming out with completely different ideas is relatively low because they have been exposed to the same things. Um, and they have been through similar experiences. While if you bring out people that really are super diverse with different exposures, this is where different ideas and perspectives will be added to the table. And this is what organizations need today to win. We are not in a stable environment. We are not, 30, similar to where we were 30 years ago, where stability of organizations was there. We are in a very competitive environment, and we need to grow. We need creativity and different perspectives to win. I
Thank
hope
you.
this answers your question.
Yes, yes, this pretty much answers my question because it is all about getting different ideas. So now, Sarah, when you spoke about these frontline workers, I do remember a quote which says that you can take a horse to the pond, but you cannot make it drink water, right? In the same way,
Mhm.
now you are speaking about putting together people from different backgrounds together. Now, what these frontline workers or people have to do in order to ensure that they are showing an inclusive behavior?
Mhm. What do they need to do? Yeah. So you're right. If we bring people together and we don't make sure that people are open to listening to other perspectives, then our plan will fail. Will definitely fail. So many things that the organization can do to create that inclusive culture in the workspace. One of them is encourage listening, encourage opening up and sharing perspective. As I said, if people have different ideas but they're scared to share them, then definitely the environment will be diverse but not inclusive. And then people will not feel they belong to the organization. The level of engagement will definitely not be there. And then productivity, efficiency, and obviously the bottom line will be impacted. So unless we as professionals, business leaders, HR professionals, managers, and everyone at every level of the organization makes others feel that whatever perspective or ideas they have are welcome, even if those don't contradict with how others think or what we have been doing traditionally, this is definitely it won't work. So we have to be open. We have to be open to new ideas. We have to listen. We have to be curious about other people's perspective, ask them to share, and discuss openly. So these are few inclusive behaviors that are basic, yet not really done in organizations. So it's a simple recipe, I would say. Nothing, it doesn't need, a PhD or people only at senior levels to abide by. It's really everyone who can be more inclusive in the way they interact with each other and they behave as leaders.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for putting out that perspective. Now, I have this just for the benefit of our listeners who are going to listen to this podcast. Could you please tell one transformation story wherein diversity and inclusion have actually helped in terms of revenue or in terms of change in an organization?
Yes, well, there are a lot of case studies that have been researched. And again, this is not only, an HR topic or a people topic that organizations have started talking about. This is diversity and inclusion is a topic that has been researched for a very long time, and obviously companies like Deloitte, like Josh Bersin, like Ernst and Young, a lot of consultancies also have submitted a lot of articles to show in reality that D&I is not an HR topic. It really impacts growth and productivity and the bottom line, because obviously organizations, the intention of organizations is also to make money and to be able to sustain their workers and their workplaces and grow. So there's a lot of research behind it. But one intriguing example that I have read about and I have also written in my book is about Qantas, the Australian airline. and it has and research has shown that only when they started investing in DNI that their numbers completely swapped and changed positively. So DNI is not a topic, to talk about like only in psychology and about engagement. It's really not about this. There are real case studies, and I really, for everyone who's listening to us, I would encourage them to read more about those case studies published by Deloitte and other consultancies around the DNI, and start piloting or start trying new things within their organizations, and they will see how the productivity and efficiency will really be impacted.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, when you say diversity and inclusion is not just an HR topic, it is for only the frontline work, it is for everyone in an organization. I have this question: is D&I just the topic of corporates, organizations, or companies, or can that be used in everyday life as well?
It's funny, Santosh, why I mean this topic is very close to my heart. And as you know, that I have published recently a book called Inclusion Starts With You, with the biggest intention is to explain to people that actually DNI is not only a corporate topic. It's really a bigger social topic. And that you don't have to be a business leader. You don't have to be working as an employee in a big organization to be impacted by DNI. We all come from social backgrounds where we have some biases and stereotypes that kind of push us back sometimes in moving forward. I would say push us back in sharing our creative ideas, push us back in doing, making, sometimes working in a domain that we love, because I don't know, because it's not accepted in our social community, because maybe some are, I'm a girl and I'm not supposed to do this thing, or, I come from a different religion that I'm not supposed also. So some things are not accepted. So inclusion is really about accepting others, is accepting others regardless of where they come from, how they think, their mentality, their mindset, their culture, whatever they believe in. So it's really accepting others with no judgment. And this is why when you talk about inclusion, it's really about making the world a better place and a more tolerant world. And that begins at home. That begins in the way that we behave with others, we behave with our children at home, with our partners. So it's about the language we use, it's about the stereotypes that we have. So unless we become aware about these biases and stereotypes that we have been raised upon, or have been stuck in our mind because of the way that we have been raised or educated, we will not be able to become more inclusive. So
So, Sarah, when you say about biases and stereotypes, and this is one thing, and today I've deliberately wore a pink shirt just because I'm doing something on diversity and inclusion. Because all the while when I was wearing a pink shirt when I was a kid or sometime, people used to tell, "यार, ये तो लड़की का color है. This color belongs to girls. This color belongs to boys." So in this context, I just want to ask you, how can we ensure that the future generations who are going to come up, they
yeah,
become free of biases and stereotypes?
yeah. It's a good question. Now, biases and stereotypes exist, and it's it's something that many people feel sometimes that I'm not biased, I'm very open-minded, I've been exposed to different nationalities and I've been working with different people, so no, I'm not biased. And I hear some people say that actually in reality everyone is biased. And something I wrote in my book, like, if you think you're not biased, think again, because the reality is there are small things that we do by nature, and it's not to blame anyone. It's really how our human mind works. Our human mind by nature makes shortcuts to be able for us to take decisions. Like if we see something, if we see I don't know, an Asian person by nature, for us to be able to categorize in our mind makes shortcuts of information and takes decisions that are sometimes based on stereotypes. This person is Chinese, while in nature he could be Japanese, he could be Vietnamese, could be anything. But our mind by itself, it's the way that we have been exposed to. Um, we tend to do those shortcuts in our minds. So it's not a kind of a default that comes with us. It's really, this is how our mind works. And reality is, we can only become less biased is by understanding this and understanding how our human brain works. And we realize that actually and unintentionally we're doing this, stereotypes and biases. So by creating more awareness around how we think, this could be a good starting point to realize that okay, instead of calling someone Chinese directly when I see someone looking like Asian, wait, let me pause, let me ask him where he's coming from, and let me be curious about him telling me more about his culture, nationality, beliefs, and all of that, instead of me judging or stereotyping based on what I know, which probably could come from my own mind. And also, by nature, humans love similarities. So by nature, we are also, we like or we're attracted to people who look like us, who have been to the same school, who come from the same city or town. And by nature, we click with those people. Which makes us not very inclusive of others that are different than us. So by also understanding that we do humanly attract to people who are like us, and this is something that we want to start challenging in terms of hiring people that look like us or think like us, or working with people that also look like us or have been to the same schools or have been exposed to the same things. A starting point would be to challenge our love for similarity. So there's a lot of things that we have to start by creating awareness on. And we've seen a lot of communities, countries start by raising those awareness campaigns. And there has been amazing videos done by many companies to show people that unconsciously they are biased, unconsciously they have stereotypes. And by opening up our eyes on this is already a starting point for people to change positively and accept others regardless of where they come from.
Yes, Sarah, I would completely resonate with you when you say that we are naturally inclined towards similarities, because I see many of my friends moving to other countries or states, and then when I ask them, what did you see there? They say that, no, I just roam around with the other Indians there. Then I ask them, then why did you go there? What's the point in going there, right? So, on this context, Sarah, I just want to ask you, these days when I go to some job search sites and see, I would find certain jobs only males allowed or certain jobs only females allowed. So I just wanted to ask you, as an HR professional, what does is that deliberately done? Is it out of bias, or is it seriously a need, and because it has been put like only males allowed and females are allowed?
If you ask me, I don't believe that any job can be done by one gender only. Now, to be realistic, there are some challenges, or I would say some considerations, especially in countries like, I'm based in Dubai. So in Dubai, you have residencies, you have some visa challenges that sometimes put pressure on certain nationalities or certain genders. But if that does not exist, so in places like India, I would say, where you don't have that consideration for locals, you live in your own country, I don't see why we still have to put in our job descriptions a restriction on either gender or nationality or or any criteria to limit the candidate that could apply for that job. Now, traditionally, yes, and I work in an engineering company, and many managers that I've encountered with mentioned to me, please don't hire for me a lady because this job requires someone to drive 200 kilometers and be sitting on site, where it's not great for females. And I do agree that sometimes it's not convenient. However, I believe that we should give people the choice. I have met wonderful women engineers who would love to experience that kind of opportunity, even if it means that they have to sit, I don't know, 200 kilometers away from their families. Some of them would want to experience that, and they are capable of doing it. So why not give them the choice? And this is where us as HR professionals, talent acquisition team, recruitment leaders, we have to start influencing this. I've seen a lot of progress, I should say. I've seen a lot of progress in managing the hiring process, but still there are places I see or postings that I see sometimes on LinkedIn where people limit this. Unless, and I would say, unless you have a justified criteria, and again, I go back to the visa or, some restrictions, just put it there. Make people aware why you are limiting this for a female or a male. But if is no justification, or sometimes a judgment in your own mind that makes you think that only male can do this, this is definitely something to be challenged. Let us give people the choice. If this role is, we open it to everyone. If 90% of our applicants are male, then let it be. Or 100% are females, also let it be. But let's give people the choice.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, also this also brings me to your point, and there is a saying in Hindi which says that "khana, kapda, and makan," which means that food, clothing, and shelter. This is traditionally in India, at least as I know, is being taken care by men, and all the household work is being taken care by women. And when you say that this kind of inclusion and removing biases starts from hiring managers or engineering managers, do you think what is the role inside a family that it can play, and how should the environment in a family being created so that it actually the inclusion and removal of all these biases starts right at the root, right from the childhood, right from when we are kids? What do you think about that?
Surely, most of what we're talking about, 99%, I would say, comes from the way that we're raised. And again, I don't blame parents. I don't blame our societies, because there's a lot of history there that sometimes this is the way that also they have been raised. This is where how societies were formed. But our job is to start challenging this. We have to be more open in the way that we raise our children, to tell them that the sky is the limit. If you are a girl, you have the possibilities to do exactly what the boy is given as opportunity. So this is something that we don't see much. We see in few, I would say, more open-minded families that have been exposed or that have been educated, or maybe have been also working in the workplace for some time. But we do have some more traditional or conservative societies or communities where still females and males are being differentiated in their ability, in the way that they are given opportunities. And as you said, like, women sometimes are not even allowed to work. In some countries, by the way, also not only talking about India, but in some countries, women cannot even open a business without the approval of men, or they cannot even get a passport for their kids without having a male approval. So these are the things that we need to start challenging. Females are 50% of the community, 50% of the world. And we as people, not only females, we as men and women have to start pushing to give equal opportunities to both. If we start by building that inclusive mindset in smaller young ages within our families and homes, eventually we will see the needle move faster on having an equal and inclusive world. Women will be more comfortable asking for what they want. women will feel more comfortable working in getting opportunities or stepping up where sometimes we don't see this. And definitely they will be more comfortable asking for equal pay, equal opportunity, and other things definitely that today we still see challenges in.
Yes, Sarah, I think whatever you say, all these things are acting like catalysts in actually driving inclusiveness, especially for women. Now, while these are driving some inclusion and giving acting as catalysts, there are also some inhibiting elements that are coming against this. Okay. Now, I was very recently having a debate with one of my friends. She's a female, and I was saying that, okay, why can't you go out after 11 in the night? Okay. And she said there are security concerns, there is eve teasing, there is, and India is known as the Delhi is known as the rape capital of India. So with all these things, the supporting forces and the opposing forces, what is your answer to these opposing forces or things that are acting as inhibitors for actually increasing this inclusiveness?
Yeah. Super interesting questions, Santosh, and I will tell you. Actually, recently I've also been reading about a book that highlights this in a very nice manner. And it says that most of the policies, and I'm saying government policies, okay, of most of the, how do we call them, decisions that I don't know, municipalities take, or even governments take, or country decision makers take, are based on historical information that are mostly linked with men being in decision making and the way that they think. So rarely where women have been asked, for example, what are the routes that they have to take, for example, to drop their kids to nurseries, or what kind of activities they have to do to be able to go to work and come back. So a lot of facts and figures that simply, for example, decide on where should they put more lights on a street. Okay, and again, which impacts the rape, which impacts security of some of those streets, all are based on historical information that comes from men and their way of working. So if we start by asking women, or by having more women on the decision making boards, governments, and this is what we're seeing in a lot of countries today, and even in India, or and even in the UAE, when you get a different perspective in decision making, this is where things change. And again, another simple example, some companies didn't even have female bathrooms. So how are you, or dedicated bathrooms for females, because they never hired a female. So how can you start hiring females and saying, okay, I would like you to go on site, without giving them an opportunity to use a bathroom? So unless there's a woman there who would say, hello, you know what, women also need to use bathrooms, or women also take, have to take that route to go to their job and come back at night, or take the bus and come back at night, women do that, then this is where you start accounting for those cases of more security on specific routes, more police, I don't know, or control, I would say, in specific places where women are actually supposed to be there. So you have, this is exactly why you see a lot of countries pushing more and more females other than the traditional, white males, or we see non-diverse board decision makers, because that's where new perspective will come in.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for bringing out this point. Actually, I could see a lot of change, like maybe in the last 10 years that I've seen. So things have been changing. I feel so. It is a bit slow, but almost it is changing. And of course, society is also changing. Now, you gave what society, what governments can do with respect to bringing that inclusiveness and removing biases. Now, let us go back to the actual topic that we are discussing, which is inside an organization, what
Mhm.
leaders can do in order to bring diversity and inclusion.
Yes. So there are many things that organizations can do and leaders can influence. One of them is be a role model for being human. Because we know that traditionally, leaders were showing that face of of the professional mindset, professional figure, hierarchy. I decide, and nobody is the final decision maker other than me. And with time, we've added inclusive leadership as one of the requirements for you to be a good leader. And when you talk about inclusive leadership, it's really, as I said before, it's really about being open to new ideas, including everyone in the room, asking their views, even if those are, again, different than the leader's view. And then make sure that you show also as a leader your vulnerability. You have families, and we've seen this rise a lot during COVID time. We've seen leaders who, were speaking on video calls and children crying in the background. We've seen, and this is okay because we are humans, and we cannot anymore separate the professional and the personal. We are one human being that is well-rounded and has, the personal and professional makes you a whole person. So be okay with being vulnerable. Be okay by role modeling that behavior, and accept that others within your team show also that true identity by sharing their personal and professional challenges. So that's one thing. And then there's, again, there are more tangible things that they can influence, like policies. Make sure that the policies give flexibility for people to be who they want to be or who they are, to be okay by showing their true identity. If that means that they have some, I don't know, mental illnesses, stressful challenges. Now with COVID also, we've talked a lot about mental and well-being and mental health, because this is true, it exists. And unless we start accepting that people are different and we don't expect them to be, to show only their professional sides, um, this is where we accept and show and give employees a true sense of belonging to the organization by giving them the space to show who their true identity is, even with the challenges that they are facing personally and professionally.
Yes, Sarah, I agree with you on this point. Now, here I have one more question. That is, when you spoke about showing vulnerability on in this virtual world, although we are a bit going back into a hybrid working model or hybrid kind of operating. So before COVID, what used to happen is that there used to be a kind of dinner meetups, canteen meetups, catch-ups, wherein there used to be some casual conversations, and there the vulnerability part used to come out. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
with this virtual and hybrid model coming up, there is no scope wherein I, I know you. Let me tell you one incident that happened with me. Very recently, I was asked to evaluate someone who was about to join our team. So I just
Mm-hmm.
called that person, and that person says that I don't know what is the background of that person, but that person is not interested, seem not interested to join our team. So what do you understand now? Because I don't have any background, I don't know what is happening with him, I cannot see him, I cannot actually sense what he's about, what has been gone through, and anything. And he simply cut the call and he asks me to call later. So in these scenarios, how can we ensure, when there is no literal connect, that we are ensuring there is inclusion and diversity?
Mm. Yes, I mean, COVID made it much more difficult, I would say, because of the lack of personal interaction. But let's be realistic. The new reality is virtual, and we have to find ways to connect with people virtually. Now, if that means that you book daily, like 15-minute catch-up calls, and ask people how they are feeling, because virtually we have the tendency to to jump on meetings, back-to-back meetings. While I said, some people would be juggling between personal and professional at the same time, their kids at home, their online schooling, their cooking, so it's difficult. So it's important for us to ask people every day how they are feeling, like rank from 1 to 10, how do you feel today? And make sure that we give people the space, and again understand their personal realities. What are they juggling with? Are they comfortable working from home? Is it giving them a lot of difficulty? So let's really get to the core of what people are experiencing. Don't assume that everyone manages those challenges the same way and everybody's super happy by working at home. It's not. Reality is people have different circumstances, and unfortunately we do not have those face-to-face collaboration or face-to-face opportunities to connect. So we have to start learning to do that virtually. That's the only way. It's not rocket science. There's no one solution for all, but a starting point would be just to make sure that you get to know your people, you connect with them on a personal level before even jumping into what is required for us to deliver on. We have to ask about people, ask about them, understand how they are feeling, what's their psychology today. And again, we talk again a lot about the well-being and mental health, and people have to accept that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay, and they have to feel comfortable sharing it. So, as HR or business professional or managers, it's also our duty to provide those platforms for people to share if they don't feel well. If they don't feel comfortable talking to us as managers, we have to also make sure that there are the right platforms where they can, or the routes they can take to talk to someone, be it a life coach or coaches or psychologists. So there's a lot of opportunities, and that's the beauty of virtual in a way. The sky is the limit. So um, in a way, it has its own advantages too.
Yes, I just wanted to say, how did we connect? Only because of virtual, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So, on this note, Sarah, I just wanted to ask you, could you please tell about your book? Inclusion starts with you.
Yes. So yes, the intention of my book, as I mentioned earlier, um, is to highlight first how important the topic is. And I've been working in this space for the past few years as an HR professional. Also because of my personal interest in this topic, and again I come from also a society that is kind of conservative of what women can do and men can do, or what is expected from women to do at certain ages and all of that. So it's very similar to many other stories around the world, and for me it was important to talk to others who can relate and tell them that it takes time to change. You cannot change communities and societies and the workplaces overnight. So it's really a long journey, but everyone has a responsibility to do uh, small steps that could create big impact eventually. So my intention of the book is to explain what DNI is, and I was worried that because many people were talking about DNI, it lost its true meaning. People felt at the end of the day, sometimes it was used for advertising, or just a nice slogan. And I wanted to tap into explaining to people that DNI is a true and valuable concept that everyone can influence. It's not only about bringing more women on board. This is not only what it's all about. And I know that many men actually say, "Oh, we're so fed up of the NI. Okay, great companies are hiring more women. Then what?" And this is where I felt that people were losing interest in the NI. And I wanted to make sure that I bring people as much as I can, influence them to go back and understand the true meaning of the NI, how it could relate to them regardless of where they're coming from or their own experiences, and then show some business leaders what they can do to influence their workplace, and people, individuals, to share some stories about how simple individuals without big budgets and without big support have also been able to change the world in a way or another. So the intention is to really influence people to become more inclusive, create awareness around the topic, and together we can really be the change we want to see in the world. So that's really, it's all about inclusion starts with you.
Yes, Sarah, I think the things that we have discussed in this podcast earlier, like what happens in a family dynamics, what happens in a team dynamics when we are working, or how our cultures have been formed. And I think this is one topic I feel that this is not just to be discussed in an organization, but it is for each and every person on this planet. So, to all the listeners and all the viewers, I would urge you to read more about this topic, and I'm also putting the link of the book in the description box. If you find it interesting, you can also take that book and you can start reading the book. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing those insights with me. Now, when we say and speak about diversity and inclusion, if I am going to stop this podcast without asking this one question, then I would be the person who is doing injustice to this topic. So I want to ask this question. So these days, in the last 1 decade or 5 to 6 years, I have seen a surge in organizations and companies encouraging LGBTQ inclusion at workspaces. And there has been a lot of backlash to this as well. Now, how can we prepare our future generations in order to get rid of this kind of bias?
Santosh, it's not rocket science for me. I think it's very similar to any other topic that that took a lot of time to change. It's really about similar to if we think about the simple, few years or many years back, women were not allowed to work. And now we see more and more women in the workplaces taking, C-level roles, women in government. But that was not an easy journey. It was a journey where people really sacrificed and worked hard to get there. And the LGBTQ community is the same. It's really about, again, diversity. We need to accept that people are not the same in societies, they are not born the same, and they're not expected to be the same. We need to acknowledge that people are different and their sexual orientation is similar to the nationality, background, culture, religion is one aspect of diversity. So we need to accept and be open and okay with the fact that some individuals have different sexual orientation than others. And by accepting that, we and by accepting the biases that come in our mind, again because of the way that we have been raised or the previous, the history behind all of this, we start putting that aside when taking decisions like hiring, when taking decisions like who to promote and accepting in the workplace. So regardless of their sexual orientation, it's similar to regardless of their gender, regardless of their nationality. This is actually another aspect where we need to overcome by with time and awareness. There's nothing more that we can do except educate people, educate and raise the flag. You are doing your part through your podcast um, to promote this. I am doing my part through my book and also by speaking up about this. And it's everybody's job to speak up, to just speak up that this is actually only one aspect of the human being, and it doesn't define you. If you are gay or lesbian, it doesn't define you as a person. So it's really about awareness. And again, don't raise the bar too high. Things are not going to change over time. Let's accept this. But it doesn't mean that we should stop. It means that we should keep on raising the flag, keep on speaking up, and keep on pushing the needle to move. And eventually, one day, we will see in these countries, in India, in Dubai, in many the Middle East in general, we will see much progress similar to what we have been seeing in the West.
Thank you, Sarah. I think there is this one fundamental formula that is challenge your bias, challenge your
Yes.
natural instinct, and then keep moving, keep trying. It will happen one day. This is my one key takeaway from this podcast. Now, I would like to ask you final one key takeaway for the audience to give from your side.
Yes. First, I would like them really to read the book, because the book is not complicated. It's really a simple kind of guidebook about how things happen within our societies. So it's really a simple guidebook. And then start by doing inclusive tests, and I've also included this in my book because we don't know what does it mean maybe to be inclusive as an individual. So there are a lot of tests that are free online that you can just tap into and say, okay, let me measure how inclusive am I today, and it will give you some tips and tricks on, okay, maybe I should be a better listener, maybe I should be more curious about others. So there are few things, and again in my book I talk about inclusive language. So there are more tips and tricks than we could had we had time to talk about today. But really, it's about small things, factual tips and tricks that we can start doing. And this is what I advise people to start their journey and influence others to do the same. The book is available online, and as you said, Santosh, it would be great to share the link. And also, it's
Yes.
going to be available soon in India in one of the bookstores. I'm not gonna say yet there, but we're working on it to have it available physically for whoever is interested.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. That is a great thing. I would definitely go and purchase your book because I must say that I have this OCD of getting books and, of course, reading them as well. So I just can't control myself from getting books and reading more and more books. So, with that, Sarah, thank you so much for being on my podcast, and all the viewers. Diversity and inclusion starts with you,
With you.
and that is what we have to give it to you today. If you have been liking the kind of content that I am bringing to you, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. And also, if you got interested and curious to know about the tips and tricks that Sarah has provided in her books, please make sure that you take that book and then just you read that book. And yes, finally, the one final phrase: inclusion starts with you. Thank you.
Thank you.